thank you everyone for coming. And what this is going to be is it's not going to be, at least from what I present, is not going to be highly technical, but it'll go over some basics. And I think Doug is going to jump in when he feels he has something to add to the conversation. And we're going to talk about fonts. We're going to talk about visibility. We're going to talk about alt tags and when not to use alt tags. Because basically, I think if you put a little bit of effort in on the front end of a website when you're developing it, you will not have accessibility issues later. And what I'm going to talk about will cover pretty much almost everyone being able to use your website. So perhaps I should get started. And without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see what we've got here right now. We'll start here. What do I have here? Okay. So I'm going to talk about this. This is on a client's website, and I just added this down here. I'm not going to actually publish it, but testing color. And so this is a group block. I created this group block here. Okay. And it's a group, and so I can do different color black backgrounds and so forth on it, etc. And so since I can do that, this is black and white, obviously, but let's change our text to, let's make our text like a nice gray color. Okay, so the text is gray, and let's do the background like, let's see if it's brown, if that works. Well, they say that's okay. Let's see if we made it more this color. That still works. But let's made it black. You see this color combination would be hard for people to read. So you don't want to use that color combination. You want to actually, when this pops up, pay attention to it. I've had clients who have come up with a color design, a logo or whatever, that some of the colors are very similar. And I've had to maybe not follow all the parameters they wanted, but told them why I necessarily could not follow all the parameters. But we're going to talk a little bit about color blindness too, and before I venture on in this. So let's talk about that. I'm going to go to this page, and this is just an article about color blindness and how to visualize stuff. So the biggest problem really is with reds and greens. Most people, those are who have color blindness, which is about 7% of the population. It's reds and greens that they can't differentiate from. And you might find out you are colorblind when you're a little kid and you're picking berries, for example, picking raspberries or strawberries, and it's hard for you to see the fruit because the fruit is red and the leaves are green. But nevertheless, a lot of designers like to use red and green because they're opposites in the color wheel. They're complementary colors in the color wheel. And also we see them. One means stop, one means go. You can use it to differentiate a bad choice versus a good choice, or highs and lows. But it still is going to be problematic for people. So this is an article. This person is red and green color combination problems. And here's an example. He was trying to book a flight, okay? And trying to figure out which days are the cheapest to fly by looking for the low fare. So you see, he might have trouble finding the cheap days to fly on this particular kayak site. This is how it looks for everybody else. But for 7% of the population, it's going to look something like this, which maybe is a problem. If you're selling to thousands of people, you may not want to turn off 7% of the population. You may want to make it easy for everybody to read, and there's ways to do that. He has something on his Chrome browser that can help change colors for him. But I mean, you can't expect all your customers to do that. You just can't. So think about how color contrast is important. Here's another example he gave. He drove into a parking garage, and it was at the airport, and the red lights in the parking garage were designed to show you where there was no parking, and there's other lights to show you where there was parking. Now, this is how it looked to him. Obviously, he can't tell the difference, can he? This is how it will look to everyone else. You see the green down there, further down, those are open parking spots, and the reds aren't. But this just looks all yellow. He's not going to be able to tell those apart. He just got to drive around. So there's an example of the red-green issues. Here's an example where somebody had posted something on Reddit and about this really crazy looking pepper. And he's like, so, well, here's how it looks to us in the picture. That's not how it looked to him. So even when you have images, if it's an important image on your website, you may want to think about that, about what kind of color contrast you wanted to have. Here's an example of a leaf he found. And so it looks like that to him. That's why the person posted the leaf, because half of it's red, half of it's green. So you kind of get the idea here. What else do I want to talk about that? He recommends a better choice as being blue and red as color contrasts. There are people who would still have trouble with that, but they're very, very small minority. Here's another example. Of course, one of this is peanut butter and one's avocado, but you wouldn't be able to tell that right away. So just think about that when you're putting things online. He tries these Ochroma glasses too. They don't always work for everybody, and they don't really work for him. It's something that people who are colorblind can get a prescription for that kind of helps heighten color. It isn't necessarily going to work, so you can't expect people to have that. Here's this was put out, I saw this online. It was put out by a government agency that told you, and how are you going to really be able to read that on here? It's difficult. Here it is, the way it's supposed to look, but the government agency wasn't really making it accessible to everyone, were they? A little bit hard to tell. But it doesn't have to, here's a game that came out, and it came out in like the 2020, and they finally updated it so that people could read it, could actually see it. And they did it by changing color names on characters. It was like a matching game. You match wires to the character, and he couldn't do it when it first came out, but they have updated it since then. But here's Wordle, which we all love. This is accessible from the get-go. So it's possible to do. Who here plays Wordle? Just kind of say, yeah.
Yeah. I
play it every day. And so this is how it looks to him. So that's when we're at it, it's green means, yeah, you want it, right? I mean, but that turns in, that's orange for him, and that's blue. I don't know how their developer did that, but he asked Wordle what inspired him to have the feature, and he said the designer said, I think it just felt like the simple thing to do to make people feel included. But he could have done more. He's talked about it being accessible to blind people as well, and I think he's still working on that to make it fully accessible to blind people or vision impaired people. But it is possible to do. So that's why I'm going to recommend people, if you want to read this article, I'm going to put it in the chat as a message to everybody. Let me find my chat. Where is my chat? Chat, there it is. I'm just going to put it as a message to everyone. So you'll see it here. There. You might want to read the article yourself. Any questions on something like about color blindness or color contrast?
I can tell you, I showed this to my wife and she was horrified about the avocado being that color. The peanut butter, you know, it's just,
Marianne, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Is it possible to test a site for, for the color?
I
uh,
have a
coordination?
tool that I showed last month. It's called Polypane, and it can show sites that with particular color blindness capabilities. But yeah, there is a way. I might show it again.
If you review the meetup from last month, there was a video made for that. You can look at it there and watch it being done. Here's another one, online test for color blindness. But this is find out if you're colorblind. That doesn't really work. You'd have to colorblind page filter testing tool stimulator. Okay. Simply enter a URL and pick a filter. Let's play with it.
Yeah. Richard, I put in the polypane.app. It's an application for developers. It's an actual browser, and it also has capability of displaying all the different varieties of color blindness.
Great, thanks,
So,
Steph.
yeah.
Hey, Richard, why don't you give me a website you want to test? We'll do it right now.
Okay, nwveg.org.
HTTPS nwveg.org.
Yeah, VEG.
If I got it in right, it should come up.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay. nwveg.org. Fetch and filter. Okay, let me find it. I'm going to search it out on the internet.
You need the 2 slashes in there.
Yeah. I didn't see the 2 slashes.
It'll work better if I just do this. Okay. Fancy. Okay. Let me go back to that. Hold on here. Colorblind tester. We'll do this. It's thinking. Okay.
Wow.
Okay, and so
That's pretty dramatic.
That's pretty dramatic.
And that one is a Protanopia, I think it is.
Right, which is, let me just a second here. There was another.
Yeah.
It makes red look and green look less bright. Its type is mild and usually doesn't get in the way of normal activities. So let's look at it again. Doing this one, fetch and filter. Okay. So it does, Tritonthopia.
This is the most common one, Oh no, sorry, it was the other one.
Yeah,
At the top one.
Protanopia is red and green. Tritonthopia is blue-green color blindness. Oh, blue-yellow color blindness. And this one, this would check for all forms. So it just looks like a black and white if you do the grayscale. But yeah, so it's for the most common kind, it's going to be a little not as appealing. I'm sorry. I like the site, but I could see. It's just something to consider. Is all. You can't, I don't think you should get rid of all your color. I think this is a little bit hard to see up here, possibly.
Yeah.
For them, I maybe would put a different something, a different color contrast. Even up here, it's not that easy to see though. Like maybe
Yeah,
increase
black,
the size of the navigation words possibly.
Yeah. Okay.
The click here is kind of visible. It's more visible here though. So that could be changed. Yeah. The gals still look good. Everybody, the pictures of people look great. So that's a good, thank you for letting us test the site. I appreciate it. Okay. Anybody else with something they have a question on with that? With color blindness. There's not always easy answers on everything, but we'll do our best here. Okay. So now, I've kind of talked about color blindness and the most common kinds. We've covered a little bit. Blue yellow is less common, and then complete color blindness is you can't see colors at all, and that's going to be difficult to deal with. Let's talk about fonts now. Actually, no, before I talk about fonts, I'm going to talk about a website I built. Okay, so this, I showed you about this little thing with WordPress. And if you're doing colors and it doesn't say it's enough of a color break, then obviously, let me move this. You want to change that. Another time you'll see it in buttons. Let me add a button here. You'll see that pop up sometimes. And let's see, testing. And then if I go to style this button here, and I put a text color of, say, purple, and I put a background of, say, gray, let's see what it says. It doesn't come up as being bad, but I can tell you that would be. I mean, I could barely see the testing on there. But this does help you, but it's not obviously foolproof, is it? But it will help, but it's not gonna, I wouldn't rely on it 100%, because when that is purple on it, it's just really too close, I think, in color to, what do you have to do to make that actually show as being bad? It doesn't even, it's not working right now. It's not working on that. Forget it. But you saw it working on the group setting. So, okay, let's leave here. And I'm going to talk about media library. We're going to leave, not updating. Okay. We're going to go to the media library. And every time you upload a picture, you want to add an alt tag. Okay, it can be simple, it can be extensive. I could write stainless alt tag, stainless steel tool. Okay, because the advantage of having an alt tag is that anybody can read it. So if you are now on the website, okay, I just added this product in, and you go to the shopping cart, and let's say you can't see, and you're scrolling down, let's say to go see all tools, and I'm down here and I wanted something for avocados, and it says talks to me. This will tell me what this is in the picture. It will actually read it out loud for me. And if you don't have an alt tag in there, it won't. So for two reasons, you want it to be accessible for people who have vision impairment. You also want it to be something where Google and other search engines know what it is. Because if they don't know what it is, they don't care to bring it up in search results. And then that hurts your websites being able to be found on the internet. This is a website I built for a client who is blind. And I'm very proud of it. And she's getting really good results with it. And she's doing quite well. But I made a small mistake on this website. And I discovered that when she got a hold of me, maybe a couple weeks ago, and said that she had a customer who couldn't find the cart page. And what I'd done is before, it isn't that way now, but before you would hover over shop, and then you'd go to the store or the cart, and they were both drop downs underneath shop. Well, actually, it said store. It said store, and underneath was a shop page and the cart page. And she had trouble finding the cart page. And when I changed it, it was easier for her. So that's sometimes you will run across things where you make changes later, but that was a pretty easy change for me to make as well. And let's talk about the font on this website. So the font I picked for it was this one, Nunito Sans. It's a Google font. And I picked this font because it was a font being used it was about 2 years ago when I started this website, the Institute for the Blind was using this font. And I thought, this is accessible font. They're going to be able to use it. It'll look great. And then, so I downloaded it, installed it on the website. But just recently I found out there's a new font out. And Doug turned me on to this font. It's called Atkinson Hyper Legible. And it's a free font. You can just download it. But you can see how certain letters can be confused. So here's an 8, and here's a B. But in this font, they're distinctly different. But in other fonts, they're not all that different. And so, if I had to do it again, I might use the Atkinson Hyperlegible. And I'll tell you a little bit about how to, let's put a B and an 8 here and C. They're kind of close together on this. It might confuse someone. Another one with this is the 1 has that serif going off to separate it from the I. And then this little I has a serif, and the L has a kind of a serif as well, so that it looks different and distinct. Let's see how it looks on Nunito Sans. So the Nunito Sans doesn't have that serif. And then L. It does have that serif in the L, though, to kind of help distinguish it. So this is probably this is a good font to use.
Go ahead and put in a capital I and also the number 1, because that's where it also starts.
Okay, so here's a capital I and here's the number 1. They're distinct on here.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
In Atkinson's, you have the capital I and the number 1 are very better, more distinct than they are in the Nunito Sans. But still, they're distinct enough. I played around with it in my Photoshop, and I could share that. I did some fun things in that with Photoshop. So I'm going to stop my share and then share my Photoshop screen. And here it is. Opened it up. So this says, hello, friends. I am Atkinson Hyperlegible. So anybody want me to write something on here? So you can kind of see, it's pretty clear how it works. Now, it doesn't necessarily, it kind of breaks some rules of font designers, because for a lot of designers care about, if one thing is serif, everything has to be serif, okay? And this font doesn't do that. You can see that this I is serif, but this E is not, for example. The C is not, the H is not. So it picks the letters that need to be serif and then the ones that don't, aren't. And it's just because it wants to create differences between the letters so you'll be able to tell them apart. But that breaks a lot of font rules for font designers. So that's probably why somebody hasn't set up just really working on a hyperlegible font. But if you want to download this font, any questions on how it looks or how to add a font to your computer system? I have a Mac. All I had to do was download it and then put it into my font library. And there it appeared. It took a few minutes, not very long. Okay, I'm going to stop my share again and go back to my share my screen. Go back to there. No, hold on. This one, I think. What's that? Yeah, there we go. This is where you can download it. It's from the BrailleInstitute.org, and I will copy this and put it into our chat again. Where's our chat? So that everybody can see it. But I will probably start using this on some websites because it is so legible. And I think it'd be a good one to put on. So I'm going to give you a really quick.
I have a question. I have a question about the blind kitchen. Did you make it in a way that it could be read aloud by the computer? Is there anything that can do that?
Yes. Actually, on a Mac or on a PC, there's a little function you can turn on. It'll read aloud for you.
So it's not on the website, though?
No. People who have a vision impairment can actually download a service and it will read aloud for them. It's called JAWS. It stands JW. It stands for something. But if you go if I went into my Apple settings, there's a read aloud section, and I could turn it on. It would read. It would be irritating to us, but it will read the aloud, and it will read the links and tell you what the links are and so forth.
I have a question as well.
Yes.
So the screen readers are supposed to be able to read the alt text, right?
Yes.
Okay, so are there any exceptions? Because mine aren't getting read for some reason. I don't know if I did something wrong with WordPress or what, but it's like it's just not reading the alt text.
That is a really good question. What's the website? Do you want to share your web? You don't have to share your website if you don't want to.
Oh, yeah, it's a client website, so I have not spoken to her about it, so I would rather not.
That's all right. So we're not prepared to fix individual problems here, but once a month, there is a really great group that meets. It's a meetup that is put on by Portland WordPress. Doug Ryder, when is that next one scheduled?
It's the second Saturday of every month.
So it'll be coming up.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah.
And sign up for that and get on it. And I don't participate very often, but when I do, I get answers. So they are able to fix your problems and they'll be able to dig into it. So it's like a help desk. And if you just go on and you say, okay, I have this problem. It's not reading the alt tags. What's happening? And they'll be able to figure out why.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, definitely take advantage of those. The help desks are really knowledgeable people. Doug Ryder's a part of it. We have some other members of the Portland WordPress meetup that are part of it, and it's just it's a very good group that helps solve problems.
I just put that one in the chat. It's coming up on May 13th, which is Saturday, 10 a.m.
Okay.
Help desk. Meetup really is.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Now there was another thing I wanted to talk about here. Oh, uploading fonts. So I did that with this website. I did the Nunito Sans, which I'm satisfied with. Though I would probably go with the Atkinson. I don't want to switch out now because she's already has her logo in Nunito Sans. And we wanted it to match. And the Atkinson font would be a little, not hugely different, but a little bit different. So I won't switch it out, but that doesn't mean I won't use Atkinson. Hyper legible in the future. But how do you add a font? Okay, so you go to plugins and you add a plugin called Use Any Font. And so it's in your plugins. Once it's in your plugins, you activate it and you download the font. So the font is in your downloads. And usually you'll upload it as a WOLF file, WOF, I think, and you upload it. And once it's uploaded, you'll see it uploaded. And this is Nunito Sans Light, regular, and extra bold. And then you can assign the font. And the little plugin just shows you how. It gives you a whole bunch of, these are already assigned. I'm not going to unassign them. But it tells you just can click on the font or select the font and then click all the stuff you want to be in one kind of font. So I did the extra bold and the titles and the widget titles and so forth. And everything else is kind of in just regular Nunito Sans. And then it just appears on the website that way. It really works like a charm. And we had another issue with this website, which we discovered before we went live. And I was testing it with my client and also with a friend of hers who is also blind. And we were using YouTube videos embedded. And every time these gals clicked the YouTube video, it took them off the site to YouTube. And then once they were on YouTube, after their video ran, it went to all these other videos that they didn't even want to watch. And they had to go figure out how to go backwards. And even though, in most videos, it's like it's really clear. There's a big red YouTube red button there with a big arrow and you click it. So what we did instead was we put them all on Vimeo. And I contacted a developer I know who works for Google. And it took him a while, but he got back to us finally. And he said he's filed an issue internally with YouTube regarding what he understood the primary accessibility problem to be. And he said he created some code, a plugin to turn off related videos from showing up that aren't part of your own channel, turning off quote unquote modest branding, which removes the YouTube logo from being featured among the controls, and turning off the full screen button, which probably isn't relevant in our case anyway. But anyway, I thanked him. I asked him to send me this code as a zip file. He did. And I want to test it. So the next time we do a meetup, which will be next month, and I'm going to be presenting how to build a website using WordPress 2023 theme, I'm going to actually have this plugin on that site. Well, I will have tested it before. And if it works, I'll have it on the site and I'll show you how to embed a video using it. And I will make sure it gets tested in advance. So anyway, that's just to let you know that we have that. It's called make YouTube accessible. In fact, I told him the name to name it. I told him someplace here, make YouTube accessible embed plugin. So we will see how it works, but I just got that this week from him. So anyway, that's kind of nice that they responded like that. I'm very glad. Okay, so I talked about that, and I've told you that at this point, until we get this ironed out and tested, YouTube videos are not fully accessible to blind people. You have to use Vimeo. But we'll be testing that, come up next time. And I talked about color blindness, and I talked about the blind kitchen, and I talked about alt tags. Doug, did you want to add something about when not to use alt tags?
Well, if it's just decorative, then yeah, you don't bother putting alt tags in. Websites, sometimes there's something that's really specific that you could actually put into an alt tag that actually means something, has meaning, content. But by and large, there's also, my wife has a website and she has a bunch of flowers and she just says they're decorative. They don't need to know what they are, because people who are needing the reader to actually listen, they can't see it. So she said it doesn't make sense for them to have to listen all through, saying it's a particular type of flower, because it's not referenced to what the site is. It's just decorative. So that's when you would not use an alt tag.
Right. Okay. So we're not going a full hour today. Any other questions people have about? I'm going to stop the share.
Tim has a question.
Yes.
Yeah, so on the alt tag, I had a site recently checked, and just what you were saying is exactly right. I think the clarification is make sure you do use an alt tag that is empty, otherwise your code won't validate.
Right.
So
Say it again to me. Make sure you use an alt tag that's empty.
correct, and I think WordPress inserts those by default, but it's worth checking just to make sure that if it's a decorative item,
It'll show as alt with nothing associated with it. So there's no alt with quotes, double quotes that are empty. At least that's been my experience when I've
okay,
yeah. But
On the website, you mean on the picture?
correct. So don't give it an alt tag with a lot of description, just like Doug was saying, because you're going to waste people's time, because the reader's going to read it.
Right.
But on the HTML validation, that if the alt is missing, that image tag won't validate.
I can show that as in the developer tools. You can actually see it just says alt, and that's it. That means it's a decorative image.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can't omit the attribute, in other words.
Yeah.
The attribute has to be there, but it doesn't have to have a value.
Could you say that again, Frank? A little louder.
The image tag has to have the alt attribute has to be there, but in the case where the image is decorative, it doesn't need to have a value. It says alt equals open quote, end quote, with no value.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think that's what we're trying to explain here.
Okay.
So, and will like if you do like a wave check, will it come up that alt tag is missing if you just have the double quotes rather than putting in decorative in between the quotes?
Not sure, because Wave isn't going to know if it's decorative or not. That's up to the site owner to actually say, yeah, this is just decorative, so there's no alt tag. And obviously there's ones that are really important to have and to be able to understand. So
Yeah.
But if there's no alt tag at all, it will come up that there's an error. A wave check.
yeah, false positive, we call it.
So
Okay.
you should put, so my question is, I just want to confirm this, because I always learn something at these. You should put in like a quote, decorative, end quote,
Just leave it. Just don't put anything in.
leave it
No,
out, leave it blank. Okay.
The point is that if the checker finds an image tag without an alt attribute at all, it's going to be flagged. And if it has an alt attribute but with no value, it's going to understand that as an image that's not relevant to vision impaired people or otherwise
Okay.
Sue, you had a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, do the screen readers just not read anything if they run across like the flowered image with no alt tag? It just skips over it?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm still not totally clear on the what Frank was saying. If you could say it again, it has to have an empty value?
I'll show you. If, you know.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
I had one question.
Yeah. there you go.
Yes.
When you put an image up and it has a title, is it important to take out that title?
No, keep the title.
Keep the title.
Yeah,
Do
the
they-
title, you need the title to actually be, but it's just the alt tag is the only thing in question about whether to have an alt tag or not. But you should have a title. I would suggest also just make sure you're not uploading things that are image 103, image 102, or, you know, that sort of thing, because you'll never find it in the media library, and it doesn't reference anything to somebody that's actually, you know, so it's always good to have an actual title for the image, but that's different from an alt tag.
Right. And as websites, as your website grows, you're going to have times when you really want to find images. And so always give them a title that you could search for, or an alt tag you could search for, because that's going to really help you
Yeah,
find, you know, as especially after a lot of images get put on a website.
yeah. I have a client that just loves to upload images, you know, with image 1, image 2, image 3, you know, and you're never going to find it if you've got a few hundred images in there. So that's just the, you know, the file name, so to speak, for the image. Yeah. Frank, did you have another question?
Yeah, I do actually, and I'm just wondering if we could bring this up for discussion at least, is that it seems to me there's a fine balance between using alt text and using an image caption, because there are times where, as an example, I was working on a website for a company that has 2 founders, and there's just a picture of the 2 founders. What their poses are and what they're standing by is really irrelevant. So in that case, what I did was just omit an alt value and instead put an image caption with their names. So, and I just wonder if people have thoughts on that, because I think it's nuanced. There are times when you have to describe the image, but I think that there are times where an image caption will suffice. And the reason in those cases I think it's important to omit the alt value is because the screen reader will read both, right? So in the case of that example that I gave, if I had their names in the alt value, that here's the founders are standing by a storefront or whatever, and then in the caption also their names, it becomes a little bit overkill in my view. So I just wonder what people thought about that.
That's what I'd heard, that it's redundant. If you have an image and say there's the words to the title of an event in the image itself, but then you have the title of the event that's going to show before the image, just leave the alt attribute blank, because otherwise it's redundant. They'll hear the title 2 times right in a row. And the same thing if you're going to add a caption, or if there's a brief description underneath the image that isn't even a caption, but it's just a brief description of what's happening in the image. Those are other cases where, if I'm remembering correctly, you can leave the alt attribute blank.
Yeah, so in my view, it's just important to really balance those things, because like in the case of the founder's image, the caption is important to sighted people in that case, so they know who's who, right?
Right.
And so, and I was thinking, Doug, in the case of the Flowers, your wife's Flowers website, I don't know if that would be a case where you would use, well, I think you said she uses titles for the, yeah, okay, all right.
The titles, yeah, we have one where you have 1 or 2 captions, but I think it would just interfere with the actual image, you know, to have it. And I understand what you mean. It's like some people who can actually visualize and see the image might say like, hey, what flower is that?
Right.
You know, and so it's a good point. Not sure.
All right, just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was a pretty good coverage of that.
Yeah.
Of keeping things, you know, just making it start from the beginning. Make sure your images have the alt tags when they need them. Make sure you're using a font that's legible. Make sure you're using colors that are not going to be legible for people. And just from the beginning, you'll have most of the stuff covered as far as accessibility. It would be unusual for you to have a situation come up where somebody couldn't use your website after that. So it'll just save you a lot of trouble later. Going back and trying to add alt tags to all your images, you know, after the fact, what a pain in the butt.
Yes.
Better to do it, just do it as you upload them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Golly,
have something on
yeah.
legibility. I worked on redesigning a website late last year, and someone pointed me towards a website, Web AIM, web accessibility in mind. And I use it for contrast checking to make sure like that text and stuff would come through with background colors and all. I'll put it in the chat.
You know, I would like to have that link.
Yeah, it's in the chat. So it's kind of nice because it comes up and it tells you it'll do some different comparisons and it'll tell you whether it passes or fails accessibility.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate everyone and your contributions. I'm going to check that link out right now, actually, at Web Accessibility in Mind.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
I just had, the discussion about the color blindness got me thinking. I volunteer at a blind rehab center at the local VA. And I just think in their elevator there, it has around the border of the door, lights that are either red or green, telling you whether or not the door is secured. And this discussion just got me thinking about that.
The lights are red or green.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys at the VA, and they're generally the colorblind ones. You know, it's not so many women that have that issue. So,
Mhm.
okay. Well, you might want to mention it to them.
I definitely will.
Okay. So, Marianne, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen then and just go through
Please.
these two. All right, so let me get this. And so this is just a test site that I've been playing with, and just letting you know there's no styling to this necessarily at all. It's just functionality. And one of the things that I wanted to show is this is just a standard page. I'm just going to go ahead and edit, and this is in the block editor. And I'm going to pull this up to the side like this. So I just have here's my about page, and this one here, I'm using right now, I think is the Astra theme. One of the things you can do is you can mute the actual about, which is what this page is set at as about. You can essentially hide it and then put in another H1, which is what I did. And it'll hide and show only one H1, because we all know there's only one H1 that's on a page or post. And with that in mind, I just wanted to, so one of the things that happened with 6.2 which is really good. You can look at this thing over here, the list view, but they have this thing called outline. And this will show you all the heading tags that are in this page. So if you see, here's an H1, and they're telling you that, say like, hey, you got this title, are you sure about it? And yeah, I have this set up so that the theme is hiding. So what we have here is, this one is fine, but you can see I have an H2 and H3. If I scroll down here, here is this is an H3, and then I dropped it into an H5, which is on HTML semantics is not a correct thing to do because it should go to an H4. And the idea is that these headings should be structurally correct, like as in an outline, and not used for just saying that, oh, this is the size that I want. I want a smaller heading, and so I'm just going to make it an H5 as opposed to an H4. So the nice thing is that it shows it's wrong. So it's H2 and H4, H3, and goes to H5. And of course, if I change it here and change it back to an H4, that'll correct itself. So you can go down from H1 to 2 to 3 to 4, but you can't jump over 1. And then you can go back up to an H2 or even an H3, and then you can start the process to go down again. So one of the nice little things they did in 6.2 was just showing you this. And again, this is just saying that the theme that I have, can I actually disable or hide this one, and I can put in whatever I want here for my H1. So one other thing which is kind of interesting is that you see in the list view, I have 3 groups, and I've grouped these things because I kind of feel that they are, I'm just making this up necessarily, but it's a section. So it's a group here, there's a group here because it has a color to it, right? And then the other group is just another group. And you can actually look at whatever your page is or your post, and you can kind of say, you know, these are different sections of this page or this post. And one of the things you can do is, like, if I hit this group here, in the advanced area over here on the right side, there is an HTML element that you could add, and the default is a div. A div is just a container that has no reference whatsoever. It just contains whatever you're putting into it, and it has no semantic quality on the HTML. So when you're actually seeing HTML, it's just going to say it's a div, and it doesn't give you any reference to it. So if you hit the group over here, because I had to make this a group so I could actually put a color to it over here under the styles, under the background. But if I go back to the page and I go to this area over here for page attribute, sorry, if I go to, let me get into the group again, into the block, and go to advanced, you can actually change it to a section. And that is I think that's a good default to have for a group that is kind of a unit within your page or your post. There's other things in here. You obviously know what the header is. That's where your navigation usually is, and your logo. There's a main. Everything that fits into this whole thing has a main characteristic. There's an article, which is also like the full thing. An article being a semantic HTML that actually encapsulates everything. It's a whole unit. So you can have an article, and you can have a section, a couple of sections underneath it. And these are things that are helpful for people, the screen readers too, but mostly for proper semantic HTML works really well for accessibility. There's an aside, which is a sidebar, old school sidebar, and then there's a footer. But you can actually do this for that. And I'll show you this on the front end, how this works. But one other thing that you can do with this is you can actually come down here, and I put in a plugin called additional attributes. One of the things that sometimes you need is to be able to put in an ARIA label. I'm not necessarily filling in an ARIA label, but you can add attributes to this. And I'm going to put in the link to that because it's a WordPress plugin, and actually something I just found recently, and it's pretty good. It seems to really do the job. Now, I don't really have necessarily anything that I need to put in here, but I'll just show you the process. So I'm just going to say, and this would be an ARIA label. But I'm just going to add it as an attribute, and I'll show you where this shows up. And then I can actually put in what the actual, oops, sorry, I didn't put that in here. Let me get this up here. Add it. Okay, that exists. Oh, I've already done that. Okay, so I'm going to say hi. Don't put hi in there, but that's what you have. And I'll show you what's going to happen on this and how it's going to show on the HTML. Because if you put in good quality HTML, as far as your tags go, it's always going to be helpful for accessibility. And let me just update, and I will view the page. And I'm going to go into what's called developer tools. And if you're not familiar with it, I'll just show you the first time. You go under view, and this is developer tools. I'm using the Brave browser, which is also a same browser that uses Chrome's developer tools. So you go to developer here, you developer tools, and on the Mac, it's Command Option I, and on a PC, it would be Control Alt I. I would suggest, if you're going to be looking at these things through the developer tools, that you just learn it, and it's just a muscle memory. So what I've done here is I've made this bigger so you could see it a little larger. If you scroll down, you can make it smaller, but the text could be bigger, which is great on this. So I'm going to actually go down and see what we have here. I'm going to call inspect, and I'm going to grab main article. And this is the one that had a div, just a simple little area here. Sorry, that's not it. There we go. This is the div here. And you can see where I did the other ones where I actually put a section in. Section is not necessarily a feature for ARIA label, but it really works for your HTML. So it's always I think it's a good idea to, if it is a section, and it's this one below, but you can see this, that's the one that's a section, you can really see it. And you can see I put in the ARIA label equals hi. Now it's not the text or the naming that you want in that, but you can actually add an ARIA label, which is otherwise not available to you. There's a whole boatload of things that I'll put in where you can actually see what the ARIA label would be, and so it really works out well. Now, so this is something that you can't do this without a plugin, or you can't do this without doing heavy coding with that. So ARIA label, is great on that regard. And I'm just going to actually, let's see. And here's the figure. And this is what we're talking about when we're talking about an image. This is a photo I took of, off of a garage door, Frida Kahlo. And you can see that there is in here, there is alt is blank. I left that alone. Normally I would have put it in, but I can actually put the alt in. But that's if you decide not to put it in, it shows alt as a blank right there. And that's the correct way to do it. One of the other things that I put into this, in the alt tag, into the attribute, was this loading lazy. And this is something that I could change. There's a lot of things you can do with that. This is specific to more of a performance that you can have, and you can actually treat some of these things. So if I did go back into, let me get out of here and go back into edit the page, and here, and there's the alt tag I can put in. I'm not sure if that even being it right. Hello. Garage door. It's in my neighborhood. I thought was great. So now if we go back to view the page, that will show up. here. I'm going to go back to inspect. It'll take me right back to the developer tools, and you can see the alt tag has now been completed. And one thing I just let you know, I did forget, I forgot to put the period at the end of the sentence. It's good to have the period at the end because it gives it a little pause to the screen reader as opposed to just starting to, continue on to the next thing. So it'd be always good to put a period at the end and make it a sentence. But that's
Try to always use proper grammar.
Yep.
If you can.
Yep. So anyway, there's that. So I put the plugin in there. So if you ever want to actually add, any of these attributes that are available to you for anything in here, any block that you can add is great. It just comes in under that area. And I can take this image here to go advanced. And there's a title attribute, there's an anchor, of course, but then there's this little additional attributes, which is part of that plugin. And you can stack as many of these as you want in there.
I have a question. You put in the HTML anchors. Is that part of the Astra theme?
No, this is HTML anchor. It comes in on WordPress. So this is always available on WordPress. You can drop in an anchor link here. This will allow you to.
Oh yeah, I've done that. What was the other one where you had divs?
Oh, that's this. It's this. Well, it's not a div because it's usually on a container that I did. So I'm now selecting the group here.
Right, but there was something.
Right, that shows up here. It's called HTML element, and that's there.
And does that work? That only works for groups or what?
It can work with any container, I believe. Now you're not. I mean, as far as this goes, you would never put this up as a header or a main. It's either an article or a section.
Okay. I haven't used that before, so that's.
It's for good straight up HTML, and I'll show you one thing that I believe is, again, going back over here. If I let's inspect around this area here. You can see there's this thing. This is the main, and the main means this is everything right now between the header and the footer.
Right.
It's your content. It's the one that's content specific to the page or post. You can see your headers up here at the top. Right. If I close up this, and you can see here's my footer down here at the bottom. It's not much of a footer, but there it is. You can see it's in blue down at the bottom. So I could, and they just put a few, and here's the main. This tells the, informs that this is the basic content that's on this particular page. And then there's an article, and an article for any blog post that you do, the blog post technically is an article because it's a contained piece of content. The idea is that you can take it and put it anywhere you want, and it still holds up as far as.
But doesn't WordPress just put that in automatically? Those classes.
Most of them do, yes.
Okay.
Sometimes they don't. It really depends upon the theme itself, how they treat those things. And all the ones that I did try out usually use the article. But you can take an article if it's what they would call a component of text or a component of content, and is just it can stand alone. You can take that chunk of content and you can put it on this post. You can take it and stick it at the end of your about page. That also could be treated as an article because it's a specific thing that is clear in content. So anyway, and it's so I would go back here, maybe make this a section, and this is a section. So the nice thing about that is that it just really means that there are certain portions, as opposed to just seeing div all the way down, which would be your group, or not even a group, putting things in. I think it's a good way to segment some of the areas that you have in your post or pages.
I know when a blind person is using the JAWS which is specific to people who are, they've downloaded it, they have that to help read websites, that they can read, they can have it just go read headers.
Yep.
And it'll read the headers. They can have it just go read links.
Mhm. Yes.
They can have it read specific things. They can just put in what they want to have it find for them on that website.
Right. Right.
Or that web page, I should say.
Yeah. So I'm going to put it back here if there's any questions about this, but I really found this recently, and I just really like this idea of being able to put in attributes, which I think is really great to be able to do. I'm going to also just put in a boatload of content, and this is one of the here. This is there's 3 links I just put into the chat. One of them is about Accessibility Weekly, and that's with Amber Hines, who's done a great job of maintaining accessibility meetups and just basic information. She's doing a weekly blog post on specific accessibility areas along with Kyle Van Duzen, who runs the admin bar. So she does her Friday, which I love. Every Friday she posts something new about accessibility on that page, on the top one. And then she has a Facebook group, and then that's also her Meetup group too. They do really, really good work. So those are 3 things that are pretty handy as far as I'm concerned. I just want to show one other thing. Let me come on, get out. So if I go back to the front of the site anyway. So I had a couple of other things I wanted to show, and one of them is about navigation. And if I'm here, and if I just hit the tab bar, you see I hit the tab on the keyboard, and I'm in focus mode because I focused on the first link. This is a link up at the top. And so it shows you it. So we're already there. If you can, I'm not sure if you can see, but down below in the lower left corner is the actual URL.
Yep.
Something down there. And if I hit the tab again, this is for people that don't use a mouse or have issues using a mouse, and they just basically can tab through the links and things of that nature. So the next one comes in, it's home. And I kind of hypered up these focus rings that around each one, so visibly people can see this. So if I hit the next one, if I hit services, you can see it has a little caret next to it, right? But if I hit services, it'll take me to the services page. Nothing much there on the services page. Obviously, I just put that in there just to show it. So if I came back and I tabbed, and now you see I have a caret next to it, which would mean that it's a sub menu. Now I'm not hovering over the services menu because they're not moving the mouse. So if they hit tab, they would come in and they would get this focus on the tab, on the caret there, that's right there, that little icon. And if I hit return, it will show the submenu as it should. And if I hit the tab again, you see that it's focused on here. And if I tab this, I would focus here. And if I wanted to go to that, I could hit testimonials, and that would turn to this testimonials page, so to speak. And this is because the one thing that I find really important for this, and you can see the one over here, it looks the same, right? It's about us, but that's a little caret down here. If I hover over it, of course, I can see an about and company and things like this. But they're a little different. If I tab into services, you can see down in the lower left, it says services at the end of the URL. So you know it's a page and it's going to, but if I hit tab, and I'm going to scoot out and hit tab again. And this one just has a hashtag at the end. And it would be a problematic because if I hit this, nothing's going to happen. And I'll show you what the menu looks like back in the menu, but the idea is that there's not a consistency visually here about what's going on. And I've seen this a lot, with people, but obviously if you hover over it, you would go, oh, okay, I can click this or this. But when you're hovering physically over this, should you be able to click this? And I'm saying yes, you want to have something here because otherwise people would just get annoyed, if they're just clicking on this thing, expecting a change. So I did this as a feature, so to speak, that you can actually see. If I click this, if I went past it, it goes down here and it keeps on spinning through, and then it keeps on going through, and then you can actually, click on this and it'll take you to a blog page. So I want to show you quickly the menus over here to see what the difference is. So this is the primary menu. That's the one we're seeing up there. The services is a page, right? It says the page is here, services, and it says it's a page. But this one over here, About Us, is just a custom link. It's just basically the little hashtag, which basically is a placeholder. It doesn't go anywhere. And I have seen this a lot, and it kind of bothers me that, let me just say that just to make sure I didn't botch anything up. And so I would highly recommend that you don't use the About Us as, or use one that where it just doesn't go anywhere. Now, because one of the things is that, you can get stuck, People just, he tabs in and I say, oh, why can't I go there? Because it doesn't look, because you're not seeing the hover on something. You're not moving the mouse to get to it.
Okay, so for somebody who's using, this is really good. I hadn't thought about this because I do put hashtags occasionally, and then they are just supposed to hit one of the drop downs. But for somebody using just their their tabbing through it, that is going to be hard for them to get to the actual pages underneath.
Yeah, and every theme is a little different how they handle it. This handles it okay, because it actually gives you the option to bypass this. And I'm going to just try, I'm not sure, I'm going to turn on voiceover. Okay, we'll see how this works,
Voiceover on system settings. Voiceover window. Great. 11Y RenderWorks dead. Great window. Reload this page. 11Y RenderWorks dead. Red entering a visited link. 11Y RenderWorks dead. Banner. You are currently on the heading level 1.
Okay, so we're that far. We go to the home
Current
page.
Visited link. Home. List 5 items. You are currently on the link. To click this link, press Control Option Space.
So
Peter Ingersoll has left the meeting.
okay. So for someone who is actually looking at this, because they don't know, is somebody who is not sighted, look at that, it can say, oh, there's 5 links here, 5 primary links, as opposed to 15, which you certainly don't want to do. And they may want to just to jump out. It's good to know for them how many list items are there. And if we go to the next
link, services menu toggle. You are currently on the link. To click this link, press Control Option Space. Menu toggle. Collapsed application.
Right.
You are currently on the application.
And then when I tap in,
link. Frequently asked questions. List 2 items level 2. You are currently on the link. To click this link, press Control Option Space.
okay. So you get the idea that it understands when there is a toggle, which is good. But at least a toggle can go someplace where if I keep on tabbing.
Visited link. About Us menu toggle. List 5 items. You are currently on the link. Menu toggle. Collapsed application.
Right.
You are currently on the application. Voiceover off.
So you can test that. That's just a voiceover on the Mac, which is the standard one. I hope you could hear it well enough.
Yeah, it was fast. So that's okay.
Yeah. So anyway, just be a little aware of that. Click, click, click. Where am I? I'm not going. I can do this one, but I can't do this one. So at least, and my feeling is that it's always good to, if there's something up here, you should be able to click it and go to it.
Well, I have a client who hired a SEO company, a very good one, and pays them. And they made sure there was content on the services pages. I mean, all the drop-down pages have a lot of content also.
Right. Yes.
So,
and you can put, these are the kind of things that on the services page, you could actually, it's services that would take you to the top of the page, but you can actually find other things and you can have those links. Like, I'm just going to show you my wife's site. Let me get out of here and over services, right? This goes to the services page. But if you hover over this, there would be like, it scrolls down. So it gives a little bit of an advantage to get to where you want to go. You can use that for all those, anchor links. But the idea is that the services is the services and you make sure it goes there. Okay.
Right.
Um,
Oh, good. Could you go back to your wife's site for a second?
mhm.
And how did you make that? So are they just jump links going down to other parts of the
That's
page?
all they are. Right. So you can, if I hover over, you can see it says services down in the lower left. If I go to clarity sessions, it says services and it's / the # clarity. And that's
Right.
one of the anchor links here. That's just an anchor link, that you do. This is a different browse. This is a different theme. I'm using the Bricks theme and it has its own way of doing anchor links. But these are just anchor links that you would find in anything in here. If I go back here, page, and if I wanted to, I could put an anchor link here, right? And it's HTML anchor, and I say bid. And if I update, and if I come back over here, you can say there's the anchor link here. So if I did on this page, and I'm just going to, let me go back here. Hold on 1 second. Let's go to about. All right. So if I did the hashtag, let me see the hashtag. Right.
Mhm.
Okay, that should be IBB. So it's case sensitive. How about that? So you can see it took it down to where that was as far as it could go. It can't go any further down.
Okay.
So yeah, you use lowercase. I put it a cap B on it, which is kind of interesting. Okay, I didn't know it was requesting a proper case, so to speak. Anyway, so that's how you would get from one to the next, and you could put that in in here as a of one of the areas in here. You could just drop that in on your menu, and you can just keep on scrolling down like that.
Okay.
I want to show, so that was the navigation. I just want to talk briefly about one area too that has been, I've seen problematic, and a lot of themes are doing this. We talk about accessibility, and this one here does it well. This is the Astra theme. There's people that want to have, they want to see bigger fonts. They don't want to see bigger pictures. They don't want to have to blow the screen up like you would do in some ways. So this is the settings page. This is in Brave. It's very similar to what Chrome does because they're using Chrome as a tool. There's a change that you can have a font size, as you can see here, which is standard medium fonts. You can also do a page zoom, all right? So what's the difference? Well, the page zoom blows everything up, including images, including width and everything like that. And sometimes people don't want that. They just want the fonts bigger on the website. So I'm going to overdo this. I'm going to show with very large, and this will show very large too. But you notice the width didn't change. It just made the text larger. And if I go back to medium, and I'll show you if I do this one, take this one up to 150, you notice that it takes the width and the text, equally. It treats it equally in that regard. But most people that just want to see something a little bit bigger, they just want the text to be larger. So if I go back into here, you can see this text got bigger, right? You can see this text size. It hasn't changed any width or anything like this, but all the text got larger.
And you just did that in your browser window.
Yes. And it's people, and I ask this because I have a couple of clients that do this. So if I go back to medium, and if I go back here, that was the size of the standard text.
What browser window is that you're using? I mean,
It's, I'm
that-
using Brave, but this will work with Chrome. It'll work with the Vivaldi. There's numerous, even the Microsoft Edge is using the Chromium browser. Excuse me, Chromium engine. So Chrome Dev Tools work with a lot of different browsers. I use Brave for whatever reasons, but if I went to Chrome, it would be the same thing. You would do your settings and you would find it in appearance.
Okay,
So here's the issue. You say like, oh, that worked though, you know, so what's the deal? Big deal. So we're back again to Medium, all right? So let's change themes. And I'm not going to just, have a difficulty with the themes that I threw in here at all, but I just have a bunch in here. So I start with Astra, which is the first. So I have Bloxy, which is a very good theme. I'm going to activate it and go back over to here. And you say, yeah, it's a different theme, different colors, maybe a little wider, but everything like this, but it's the same content. So let's go ahead and I say like, oh, the writing that's too small. Let me bow that up. Let me bump that up. It's very large. Yep, it works here. Let me go back here. Nothing. Not changed at all.
and that's because it's a different theme.
It's a different theme. It's not because of it's a different theme, it's what the theme authors have done. And I take, and I'll explain why. So I'll even go back into the dashboard. Let me go into a different appearance. I'll go into a different theme and to generate press. I'll go to activate that. These are all good themes. Same. Smaller text, and it's still bumped up to very large here. So one of the issues, not one of the issues, the issue is it just have to get, and because this isn't accessible and it really, for me, somebody comes in here and they can just take they want their website, they want to see websites with larger text, they want to use their browser that they've always used, and they just want it always to be, bigger text. I just need a little assist, so it's just kind of the thing that I always say is that, if you ever have a question between a little bit of a controversy about what the font size is, and somebody says, I think we need the font size bigger, you need the font size bigger. So you can just make it bigger.
Right.
But I'll show you in the customize. Now I'm using Generate Press. And I'm going into the customizer and I'm going to typography, and this is the body font, and they're using 17 pixels. And that's the problem because they're using pixels. Pixels are static. And the issues that you're going to get are just you can't make these dynamically sized with that, wanting to just get bigger fonts. So but they could do it. And the whole trick is to use something called REM, which is root EM. And it allows it to be, now it's going to get huge in a second here because I'm not going to, well, actually, let me take this off. Now you notice the fonts are really small. It's only 1 pixel big. But if I hit REM, say, okay, now the size looks bigger now. REM is a relative to the actual HTML size for fonts. And basically the 100% that's in the HTML as far as font size goes equals out to be 16 pixels. That's the default on HTML right now as it stands. So, but that's okay. So that's very large, but I can go back to medium and yeah, it'll come back to the smaller size. That's 16 pixels. If I go over here, I can, oh yeah, I can't do it because I'm in the customizer. Sorry, customizer doesn't allow me to do that. So let me go back over here. Let me go to the home page. And if I go to here and you can see the customizer system, it says it's 17 pixels, which it was, right? But if I bump it up, come back over to here and refresh, it's the same thing because it's back to, hold on one second, that should be, oh, you know what I didn't do? I haven't published it. Aha. Okay, once I published it, I come back over here and it should bump up the size of the body of the text, which it
Yeah,
did.
it does. Yeah.
So there's this, I would just say, pixels are not necessarily appropriate for accessibility. You have to think about pixels being something that was fine in the past, but nowadays for anything called fluid typography and fluid spacing, you want to be something, use a tool that can actually grow and shrink in appropriate ways. And which is usually for fonts, you would want to use rems, widths or rems, you use margins, EMs maybe, or Ms. There's various kind of things to show. I can show it here where you can see how typography can be much more fluid based on what people want to see, especially when they're bumping up the sizes here. So I'm just going to take it back to this. So here, let me go to the About page. There we go. So let me go to the home page. It's going to be a little easier. So I'm going to actually do, and this is the thing, maybe one of the talks I'd like to do about, it's called fluid typography. So right now, this site is 1445 pixels wide. And sorry, it is in pixels. That's what they do here. But you can see down at the, if I highlight this, if I inspect this paragraph here, you can see over down, you see down here, there you get to go. You can see where it says 20.895 down here.
Mm-hmm.
That comes out to 21 actually. But if I narrow down, and this is using a combination of rems and also some clamp, fluid typography functions, and you can see it changes. And you can see the bottom margin is changing with it. And now it's down to 20, right? If I keep on going down that font size, once I get to 19.5 and less, it gets less. So it grows larger as needed, and it shrinks as needed when it's not as wide.
And that's fluid typography.
Yeah, it's fluid anything, because over here, let's say I have this, so it's hard to tell. So sometimes when I, let me see if I can get, there we go. Hey, we got a section. How about that? So this section here, it has a padding around here, and you can tell it's padding. This one here, sorry. Padding is green, and then you'll see margins will be orange or anything like this. So if I scroll up, and you can see padding down here, these are the 4 patterns. I'm using a block and inline for paddings nowadays, but you can see it's like 87%. And I'm doing the same thing with the sizing here too. If I make it narrower, you can see the numbers on the padding get smaller. But the thing that does this work is that it will actually take your font size without messing with, let me go back over here, and it'll bump up. And you can see the padding and stuff has stayed, but you can see how big the fonts have gotten, right?
Right. Well, what's nice about this, what I'm seeing here that I'd like, and it's not necessarily an accessibility thing, but I like the fact that it's staying relatively the same as the picture.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of as you switch the screen, the wording, the writing doesn't go around to the bottom and wrap.
Right.
It still matches it pretty much. I like that. I think aesthetically that's really good.
Yeah, well, yes.
Well, I think that you're going to get signed up for one of these meetups on fluid typography.
Yeah.
So we can all learn how to do this.
Yep. And it will help with accessibility, because it'll force you to use rems, which
Right.
is one of the things for me. Is it becomes a very, pixels, they should be done. I do use pixels with borders. So if I have a border pick, if I'm using a border, it might have 1 pixel for the border, maybe 2 pixels. Those are fine.
Mm-hmm.
But for doing things where, like, if you have a button, and you have padding in there to push it out, you would use, pixels are different because if you make the pixels bigger, you have the padding stay static.
Right.
And you need that to kind of grow with the pixel size of the, not the pixel size, but the size of the text inside the button. I'm going to throw in a bunch of other things here. These are all for accessibility and practical guides and worth taking a look at this point. So that's kind of all I have.
Okay.